Thank you, elected members. This report relates to the proposed name change of a small subdivision that went to the regulatory committee. The original subdivision was consented in 2009, but was never undertaken by the then developer. A new developer is now wanting to realise the subdivision and has put forward a name change. I take the report as being read and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Darren. Questions from Councillor Soper. Councillor Ludlow.
Sorry, Madam Chair, it wasn't a question. I was going to move. I thought there were no other questions, so I was going to move.
And I was going to second, Madam Chair.
Oh, that's fantastic. Very efficient. So with all that moved and second, the motion's on the floor. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please just raise your right hand. Against? Motion carried. Thank you. Moving to item number 7 on our agenda today, which is the possible governance structure. I take it that everyone has read the report. I would like to let you know that it has been brought to my attention by the CE that we need some technical issues covered around this particular report. A council of committee or a committee of council does not have any mandate to change committees, and this must be done at a full council level, where His Worship would chair, and we would go through the same process, obviously, with the report. So if everyone is happy, we can call an extraordinary meeting this Thursday, so that as a full council, in a council meeting at the Civic, we are able to look at this particular report.
Happy to move that way, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Soper. Anyone happy to second that? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thanks, Mr. Lewis. Sorry, I did see Mr. Lewis. Is there any questions or discussion around that?
Only the timing in the day. We have the ELT meeting at 11 o'clock. Later than that would suit me better because I have a eye specialist appointment around about that time also.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask the CE, can we get a clear...
Madam Chair, council usually meets at 3 p.m. I would suggest to you that 3 p.m. would be an appropriate time.
Okay, 3 p.m. on Thursday.
In the Civic Theatre, so that there is plenty of room for distancing for those who wish to attend in person. If anybody wishes to join by Zoom, we can provide that via large screen.
Thank you very much. No other discussion or questions around that? So I'll move the motion that we have an extraordinary meeting on Thursday at 3 o'clock to discuss this particular report. That way we are following, obviously, the right rules around any governance change, if there should be a governance change, etc., etc. And that will be done on Thursday in a full council meeting. All those in favour, just give me a wave. Thank you. Against? Carried. Thank you. And the last report on the agenda today is the next steps for the Southland Museum and Art Gallery, and Claire will speak to that report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, the council there's a number of steps set out in that report and the past history in relation to it. I think what is front of mind is that the SMAG Trust Board has endorsed the proposal to transfer governance of the museum to Invercargill City, as have Southland District and Gore District. Originally, you were given advice that it was unlikely that you needed to consult with the community, but you were planning to consult on an annual plan. And so the suggestion at that stage was, why not put it in the annual plan, as we know from previous experience that the museum is dear to the heart of many in the public. You chose for very good reason not to consult on an annual plan and asked, what does that mean for the museum? I'm putting that question back to you in the sense of giving you some options that you could either determine that further consultation is necessary based on the sort of feedback that you've had from the communities that you work within, or you might say that limited engagement with friends of the museum who have been vocal about their views on the museum in the past, and engagement with iwi would be appropriate, and that you receive that feedback before you make a final decision. Or you might decide that no further consultation or engagement is necessary. That step is a step that you need to determine the answer to before I think it is reasonable to indicate that you've made a decision and you're going to then ask your partner local authorities to request their trustees, their representatives, to work with the SMAG Trust Board to modify the SMAG Trust Deed to introduce a skills-based board to be entrusted with the guardianship and ownership of the collection. I think you should also ask that iwi be recognised as partners in that modified trust deed. And I noted when going through the historic resolutions that, or the resolutions from last year, that there was a resolution from September last year proposing the disestablishment of the SMAG Trust. And as these things have moved on, it would be appropriate to revoke that resolution. So there it is in front of you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions, councillors? Councillor Arnold?
In my view, I'm sort of thinking that we probably don't need to go out to consultation. All the interest I ever hear about is just when the museum's going to open or close, not actually the governance. So I think, to be honest, as much as people want to know about it, I think they already know about it. So I'd be quite happy to move this forward without going back up to public consultation.
Councillor Clark?
Yep, I fully support that as well. I think that the community are wanting to get some traction on where the museum's going and what that's going to look forward to. The governance issue is really a secondary issue, and I agree with Alan. The way forward is to do no further consultation. But as Claire quite rightly says, once we get to the stage of setting up a new trustee, that's when you bring in some strategic partners around iwi and others.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Soper, Councillor Pottinger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say I'm quite happy that we don't need to go to consultation. Even the suggestion of the limited consultation, it's my understanding iwi have been consulted and friends of the museum are already represented on the trust board, as is iwi. So I feel the limited consultation is already unnecessary because they have had their input. And I would just like to comment that in the introduction of a skills-based board, I would see the skills of an iwi rep as being absolutely relevant to a skills-based board. We would want someone on a skills-based board who has particular expertise in the care of tonga. And I believe that iwi rep, while I agree with the request of recognising the partnership, I also believe that it would be essential on a skills-based board to have a reserved slot for someone with expertise in that particular area.
Thank you, Councillor Soper. I can tell you that the Southern Museum Trust Board is looking at how they see the skills-based board being made up for the collection. So I'm just referring to the collection and that we have absolutely made it clear that it's it's just a standard that iwi would be participating in every one of those discussions, as I would expect that to be done at a council level also. And I think because they are represented, we had previously made it clear, if this helps, that the advisory committee, that is an advisory board, iwi advisory board to SMAG, would stay with the new board or the new makeup. So that absolutely clarifies that iwi is a partner, which is critical, especially when you're referring to our collection. I come from a place of frustration after having the Southland Museum Trust Board make it very clear what they felt should happen, and we've waited so long for this decision to be made. And I think, like many people, just want to get on with it and get it done. So I absolutely support the move to not consult on the governance, but very, very strongly recommend there is some consultation done around the collection. I think that's going to be the next hurdle that that board would have to face. Councillor Ludlow and Pottinger. No?
No, I'm fine. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Pottinger.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Absolutely move forward with the skills-based board. I think it is our call, and it expedites this whole process. And the critical thing is, with a skills-based board, hopefully they are entrusted to make calls on the collection. Because if we're going forward to a storage facility, I believe there's a lot of stuff in that collection that perhaps we do not need, and it's evolved over years. So, you know, I welcome this skills-based board to actually look at the collection. We may need new stuff, but to look at the current stuff we have. I may be interpreting their role wrong, but I imagine the board would engage suitable people to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Pottinger. And I can add to that from this, as the SMAG chair, that we've also made a recommendation that no elected members be on that board either, that it is very much skill-based and not politically driven. And I think that's the best decision to move forward for the sake of the collection. Councillor Bex.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, I'm happy to go forward with without consultation on this one. I think we have done a lot of consultation around museum issues already. And I think that with this being really just solidifying the fact that the council is going to manage the museum, which it actually or essentially already does, it doesn't really seem like that much of a change. The question I have is in the next recommendation that says the council work with its local partner authorities. I just wondered whether we could add into that local authorities and the Southland Regional Heritage Committee. And I realise that they are the same thing essentially, because the Regional Heritage Committee is made up of representatives from the local authorities. But the Regional Heritage Committee is the committee that receives the Heritage Fund and distributes the money to SMAG on behalf of that fund. And so I think it's important that they're part of the conversation. And Councillor Lewis was with me at a meeting with them on Friday. And it was really clear that there's a bit of uncertainty in terms of the Regional Heritage Committee about where their role is and whether how they can get in and be part of the conversation. So I think it would be great if we could initiate that and include them in that conversation.
Thank you, Bex, and Councillor Soper.
Thanks, Madam Chair. If there was no one else to speak, I was going to say I'm happy to move the recommendations with the addition of the words just suggested in the appropriate recommendation. I think it is important to have the Southland Regional Heritage Committee mentioned.
Thank you, Councillor. So if I clarify, the recommendations are that the report next steps SMAG be received and the council note and thank SMAG Trust Board for their endorsement of the proposal to transfer governance and management of the activity of the museum for Invercargill to a core department of Invercargill City Council, and that council determines further consultation is not necessary, obviously. The council work with its partner local authorities and request the SMAG Trust Board to modify the SMAG Trust Deed. So is it here that you would like that addition put forward?
Yes.
After local authorities.
Yes, and the Southland Regional Heritage Committee, local authorities
Work
and the
with its
Southland Regional
partner, like-
Heritage Committee.
Okay, so are we, I'm looking for Michelle, I think taking minutes. Have we got that amendment in there, Michelle? She's nodding her head. Great, and obviously that council request iwi are recognised as partners. I'd like to move that we take the request out. Iwi are partners anyway, so council recognise iwi as our partners. in the
Madam
model-
Chair, can I explain that the trust deed is not your deed to alter? And so you need to request the SMAG trustees to recognise that. That's why the request is there.
That makes sense. Thank you, Claire. And the council revoked the resolution from 24 September 2019 relating to the disestablishment of the SMAG Trust. So that's been moved. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Munsden. Just a question, Claire, before we go out. What happens now? After we've moved this resolution in relation to the museum, council takes back the activity. We've also got a development that we need to look at. I'm wondering if we can actually put a wee bit more into this particular report and add some recommendations around getting a project team together for the redevelopment of the museum and just getting a wee bit more momentum around this. Are you able to?
Unfortunately, Madam Chair, there is nothing in the report relating to redevelopment. So effectively, you have nothing to base any decisions on. You could ask for a further report setting out the steps for redevelopment, specifically in relation to the question about what happens next is that I will communicate with Gore and Southland and ask that they talk with their trustees, their council or trustees, and that we meet with the SMAG Trust Board to get that moving for the change to be modified. And I will also ask, and it's not in the recommendations, but I will also ask for to negotiate a transfer date with the SMAG Trust.
Okay, I would like to add a recommendation if the mover and seconder would commit to that, to have another report brought back to council to determine the next steps forward around the redevelopment of SMAG. Do I have a
Yes.
seconder? Or sorry, the mover and seconder happy to do that?
Yes.
That's great. Councillor Crackett, did you have a question?
No, I was just seconding it if you were going to put it as a supplementary.
Okay, thank
Never
you. So
mind.
add that motion to the recommendations, please, Michelle. I've got a nod there. So with all of those recommendations now on the table, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, say aye, or against. Great, thanks councillors, that motion's carried. And that is the end of our meeting this afternoon. I'm happy to move into public excluded if I have a seconder for that. Hannah's just giving me a wee hands up, so I'm just going to check out if she wants us to do something.
I'm just letting you know that we are currently live streaming, so if I'll let you move into public excluded, I'm just signalling to you that I will need you to wait for a little bit once that occurs.
Sure, no worries. Thanks, Hannah. Thank you, everybody who's attending the meeting today via live stream. Thank you, staff and elected members. I'm happy to move. We move into public excluded. I have a seconder. All those in favour,